All right, finally made it back. I got my uh, dinner and everything taken care of. JV, if you're still out there, I will definitely, if you want to communicate or whatever, talk on Discord. I'd be certainly more than happy to talk to you. I realize that you may be nonverbal right now, and that's very difficult. That's understandable. But if you want to type or whatever on Discord or whatever and go back and forth, we can. If you want to talk in that sense, we certainly can. I'll be there for you. I'll shut down the stream and we'll just do what we got to do and then just hang out or whatever. Because I know that can be very, very difficult. Um, in the meantime, until I hear otherwise, I'm going to go into this training and see what they're going to say. But I guarantee you one thing: they're not going to talk about the goodness of the and the autistic kid. We're not going to get into the well-being of the autistic person. Okay, sorry. Had a bug on my screen.
Today,
Okay, let's
we're
go.
going to cover discrimination and differentiation in ABA. These two terms are two of the most commonly requested terms I get when asked questions about the RBT or BCBA exam. The thing is, they're very similar and at the same time different. And if we remember a few key things, these two terms become very easy to not only identify on the exam, okay, but to answer questions correctly on the exam. So we're going to go over discrimination and differentiation. We're going to go over a few practice questions to practice our ability to answer questions on these terms, and then we're going to wrap it up. So be sure to like and subscribe. Check out rbtexamreview.com or bcbastudy.com. Leave a comment below. Email me for any questions. Work hard, study hard. Let's get to it. All right, first things first. Maybe the most important thing to remember when we're dealing with discrimination and differentiation is that differential reinforcement leads to these two things. So whether you're discrimination training or your differentiation training, you're using differential reinforcement, meaning you're going to be reinforcing something and putting another thing on extinction. If we're using stimulus discrimination, we're going to be reinforcing responses in the presence of the identified or the desirable stimulus and putting responses in the presence of the undesirable stimulus on extinction. Response differentiation, very similar. We're going to be reinforcing the responses we want to see and putting the responses we don't want to see on extinction. It's as easy as that, okay? It's not any more complicated than reinforcing what you want and putting what you want on extinction. So don't overcomplicate it. Second thing, we often refer to it as discrimination and differentiation. A good way to remember the difference is to go by the technical terms. Technically, discrimination is actually called stimulus discrimination, and differentiation is called response differentiation. Why is that important? Because the word is right in the term, right? If we're talking about discrimination, we know we're talking about stimuli. Okay, we're trying to tell the difference between stimuli. If we're talking about differentiation, we know we're talking about responses. We want to be able to engage in different responses. So that is the brief rundown of what differential reinforcement, okay, what role it plays in discrimination and differentiation. So let's dive a little deeper, okay, into discrimination. So discrimination, also known as stimulus discrimination. Remember, this is how we're going to remember it if we keep forgetting. The technical term has the word in it. Discrimination is just stimulus discrimination. Discrimination involves discrimination training. Simply, you have one behavior in the presence of two stimulus conditions. So if we are, for example, identifying a color, our stimulus conditions might be red card and blue card. If I say point to red card, what behavior am I going to reinforce? Well, I'm obviously going to reinforce pointing to red card and not the blue card. And that's very quickly going to start teaching my client or my student to discriminate between red and blue. Why? Because when I say red, they receive reinforcement when touching red, but not blue. That's how behavior works. Example 2, picking the correct classroom. So you are on a college campus. Maybe you're in a high school campus and you need to identify the correct room. Well, you have room 201 and 202. You now have to identify or discriminate between 201 and 202. I might reinforce you for going in 201, but not 202. Now, what do you notice about this? In this case, we're dealing with a single response, right? Example 1, we're just identifying a color. Example 2, we're picking the correct classroom. It's the same response, right? But we're dealing with these multiple stimuli. We're just trying to tell the difference between the stimuli and engage in the response in the presence of the correct stimulus. One more note, you're going to, of course, reinforce the behavior in the presence of the correct stimulus, but not in the presence of the incorrect stimulus. Again, it all comes down to differential reinforcement. Let's look at a quick question. So a client steals food. You want to teach her what food container she can eat out of and which container she cannot. How would you do this? So little note, this comes straight from the Cooper book, a study they did on discrimination and teaching I think it was a 14-year-old girl to discriminate between containers. And what they did was they put labels, okay, on one container and on the other container to identify what she could and couldn't take. So in this case, you want to teach her what food containers she can eat out of and what containers she cannot. How would you do this? So obviously we're going to try some sort of discrimination method, right? We're trying to discrimination train. We want to teach stimulus discrimination. So A, reinforce her for opening the correct container, but don't reinforce her if she can't open the correct container. So what's the issue here? The issue here is we are looking at...
The issue is we're completely lacking communication. First of all, tell them what container they can eat out. Secondly, simply remove the container they can't eat out of so that it's not a problem. Real basic stuff.
Specific responses. Opening versus can't open. We're worried more about her choosing the right container, right? We can look at the responses later, but right now we just want her to pick the correct containers. A focuses on one container, which is the correct one, rather than and looks at the responses rather than looking at the correct container versus the incorrect container. So A, we're not teaching discrimination of containers, we're just teaching.
Really? Okay, well, we can turn this up a little bit and turn up my gain a little bit. Okay. Let me see if this, I've had this happen before where my volume was a little weird. Thank you for letting me know, though. I certainly appreciate that. Okay, is that getting... No, it's not getting any better yet, is it? Ah, that's why. Gonna raise this volume up a little bit. It's slowly going up. I have this weird system on how to do it. It doesn't work at the best. Really, it's muffled? You know what? I'm gonna get out of here and come back and see if I restart this computer if it'll work. Thank you, and I'll be right back.